Yes, hello and welcome. My name is Dr. John Mason. I founded the Stress Education Center in 1978. I'm the author of the book Guide to Stress Reduction, and I get to be a content provider for Pathfinder's Resilience. I'm sorry. Today, we're going to continue in the series of how to take back control, taking back control of your body, taking back control of your life. But I need to back up just for a minute here. We're going to talk about anxiety, stress and anxiety, more today than ever before in human history. And if you stop and think about it, we have a survival mechanism that's built into us. It's called the flight fight response. It's designed to keep us alive. It protects us, it defends us, it gets us ready to fight or to flee if we need to protect our lives. It's in most of our DNA. It's in our genetic code, as it is in almost every animal and some plants that exist on the planet Earth. The flight fight response, to get you ready to fight or to flee, it does some major things. It makes certain muscle groups very tight. And we experience it in tension in our jaw, in our forehead, in our neck, and our shoulders, in our back, sometimes muscle cramping in our legs or extremities, in your arms, your hands, and your feet. Our heart begins to race, to pump blood with oxygen and nutrients to all the different parts of your body so you could fight or flee if you needed to save your life. For some of us, our blood pressure goes up. We definitely are releasing certain stress hormones. Adrenaline is one that's very common, also called epinephrine, and it is one of those hormones that stimulates the increase of a heart rate. Noradrenaline, norepinephrine, it will raise blood pressure. This is another stress hormone. These are triggered if you're in a life or death situation, or if for some reason your body perceives a threat, a stress, something that creates anxiety, something that raises your level of concern, even to the point of panic. And these hormones might be released. Another very important thing is your blood flow patterns change in your body. You'll find that the blood is needed and sent to your heart, to your brain, to your central nervous system, to the major muscles of the body. Where it's not needed, you'll have a vasoconstriction, a tightening, and you might feel coolness in your hands or down into your feet, because you'd use your extremities to fight or to flee, to protect yourself. And if you should get cut, you would have less likelihood of bleeding to death in this survival mode. These are very important, and I'll explain that in just a minute. Our breathing patterns change. We'll either hold our breath or breathe in a rapid, shallow way, not the slow, deep, diaphragmatic breath that is really helpful when we're relaxing, when we're meditating, when we're allowing ourselves to let go so that we can heal and we can recharge. The blood is also diverted away, and so is the psychological, emotional, and physical interest in our digestive organs, in our reproductive organs. It becomes a low priority to be digesting food or to keep the species alive. That's one of those things that happen. And as a stress-related disorder, we may have upset stomachs with constipation, diarrhea. We may have sexual dysfunction issues. 70% for both men and women can be related to this stress and this anxiety. There's many things that are occurring. And what I want to do is tell you, this is information. We'll talk about the solutions in the next video, but the information that's really important in the last 40 or 50 years, since the end of the 1970s, when we entered what is known as the information age, where technology began to accelerate the pace of change and knowledge, not necessarily wisdom, but the amount of new information we had to deal with. Some of you may be remembering what was going on in the 80s and the 90s. And if you don't, the history is such where technology was just beginning to just bombard us. We began to get home computers, we began to get fax machines, we began to get pagers, we got cell phones, the news on the television. You know, we went from like 12 channels on cable TV to hundreds of channels and 24/7 input. I remember right before 9/11 in 2001, about 3 months before that, I remember that because I was in the stress education center business and I had to deal with a lot of stress and anxiety around and after 9/11. But 3 months prior to 9/11, news changed on television. It was not just the talking head that was giving the news, but at that point there was graphics to one side of the screen, and then there was that thing that still exists today where they rotate the news very quickly on the bottom, and it has nothing to do with necessarily with the report of the news that they're giving you, but you're overwhelmed because you have all of this input 24/7 coming at you. The disasters in the world are instantaneous, and the media knows that to keep your eyes on the screen, it has to increase your fear, your anxiety. So you have to look to see what you need to do if you have to survive as an individual, even if this is happening half a world away. We're living with this on a regular basis. Technology, of course, has now created a situation where we have to respond almost instantaneously. In the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, people actually would write letters, they'd put a stamp on it, it would go out as a response to people. And you may take a couple of days or even a couple of weeks to get the information back from people. Now, if somebody texts you, you're almost expected to respond instantaneously. Stop whatever you're doing. Even if you're driving 70 miles an hour on the highway, you got to respond to the phone call or the text message. Sure, it's illegal, but we have something going in our mind that's triggered when we hear that sound of a text or our cell phone ringing. The pace at which we are living, the pace of change has increased, accelerated tremendously, exponentially since the 1980s with all of the technology. But let me ask you something. Maybe you've studied biology or zoology or physiology. Do you realize that changes in our human body, our animal body, take generations to occur? If there's something that needs to be done, it takes hundreds, maybe thousands of years for us to adapt physiologically to the thing that needs to occur. How much evolving have you done, or your family, or the generations around you? How much evolving have you done in the last 40 or 50 years since the late 1970s and the 1980s? The answer is that's ridiculous. Human body, DNA, biology, zoology, it takes generations to make changes. We have not been able to adapt to the change at the pace that we've been living at. Now, I remember in the 1950s, my parents would go to work. They were both working, and they would come home from work about 5:30 in the evening. Now, who gets home at 5:30 anymore? They would go into the living room. They would sit. They would have a cocktail and a cigarette, and then for half an hour before dinner, they would debrief. They would talk about their day. They would just unwind before they got into their meal and the evening. Who does that? I mean, yes, we have medications. Yes, there's all kinds of ways that we can medicate ourselves to calm ourselves down and slow down. But that was a culture that allowed us to think that smoking was relaxing and drinking was okay. And the debriefing, of course, had to happen over a period of time. We still need to relax. We still need to step back from our work or from our lives or from the drama in our families. We still need people to talk to debrief, to share wisdom, information, experience, to get support in our world, families don't have that kind of time. They don't have that kind of discipline to sit quietly before they have a meal, maybe even before they interact with their children. And when they get home, they're all stressed out, had a commute, they've been beat up at work and on the drive home, and they go directly into childcare. This is brutal. And there's a lot of stress or anxiety. Now, I've said this in other videos. There are things you cannot control. And a lot of this, the pace of change, the way our culture behaves, the way that our media behaves, we can't control that. The thing that you can control is the way you respond. And awareness is half the battle. Awareness that you don't have to get on that merry-go-round or that roller coaster. You don't have to jump in and be crazed. That's number one. The other thing is that you can breathe. You can do stress management. You can find ways of debriefing in a healthy and positive way. Perhaps you choose to go for a walk, maybe even out in nature. And when I do that, and I do that on a regular basis, 5 times a week, probably, I'm walking in the forest, I'm walking by the ocean, I'm walking by a river or a stream or a lake. And all of these things seem to ground me out and slow me down. It helps me to not only let go of stress and anxiety, it helps me to be more calm and efficient so that I don't get in my own way when my mind and body are tense and spinning and make the mistakes that then have to be undone. So if you can see where I'm going with this, I'm saying to you that stress and anxiety is a part of our lives, and you have a choice. You have a choice to be aware and to let go, to practice letting go, even if you have to learn how to do that, because we're not really taught to do that in our culture. My name is Dr. John Mason. I'm with the Stress Education Center. You can find our website at D-Stress. That's just the letter D before the word stress. There's articles, there's information, there's guided relaxations that you can get. That's a resource. Pathfinder Resilience is offering much information about how you can be aware, how you can look at your life differently and in a more positive, healthy, or wellness driven way so that you can get more done, perhaps in less time, feeling better and not feeling like you are out of control. Now, again, panic and anxiety is real common. Almost everybody experiences that. The people who don't experience that are probably lying, or they're probably delusional, or they're on medication or something. We're all suffering from stress, some of us from severe panic and anxiety. And each and every one of us needs to support the people that we are around, our friends, our family, maybe the people at work. And we need to take steps to take care of ourselves. If you feel like you need that, the Stress Education Center is available. You can call me for coaching or advice. Check out the videos at the Stress Education Center, which is also on YouTube. And I really appreciate your time and your attention. Just remember that in the future videos, we are going to look at ways to solve anxiety, to reverse this so you can get back in control of your body and your life. And it's really worth your time and effort to do so. Again, please take good care of yourself no matter what you choose to do. Work with it, master it, and then if you're willing to, find a way of sharing it so the people around you can benefit from that as well. I really appreciate your time and your attention once again. Thank you so much for joining us, and come on back. We'll give you as much information as we can in the time allowed. Anyhow, please take good care of yourself. Thank you.